Your story changed you. Now let it change the lives of others. This is a Candy Factory Mini. So you want to write a book? With Suzette Mullen.
Join me as we follow the development of a nonfiction book from idea to completion. We'll explore the creative process as well as the nuts and bolts of pitching and publication. Get a behind-the-scenes look of my book coaching process, as well as clear takeaways and nuggets of wisdom. Let me walk alongside you as you learn to tell your story. Hello, I'm Suzette Mullen, your host, and welcome to the very first episode of So You Want to Write a Book. I'm a book coach, more on that later, and a nonfiction writer. So I know from both sides of the table how daunting the prospect of writing a book and getting it published can be. My goal with this mini show is to break down the complex process of becoming an author so that you can finally write the book that's been rattling around your head or tugging at your heart. And even if you never plan to write a book, my hope is that the stories and tips I share each week will help you become a better literary citizen and a more effective writer in your own personal or professional life. So, since this is our first show, let me start with a few housekeeping details. While I specialize in writing and coaching nonfiction, much of what I'll be talking about translates to fiction writers as well. And if you have a question about a genre I'm unable to answer, I'll do my best to guide you to a resource who can. And speaking of questions, yes, I want your questions. This show is for you. So ask away, leave a comment in our chat, and I'll be sure to answer your questions next week. And before we go any further, go ahead and grab a pen and paper or have your phone handy so you can take notes and do some of the short exercises I'll be leading us through today. Enough housekeeping. Let's start with a story. Hint, I almost always encourage my writers to start their books with a brief anecdote to illustrate the point they want to make. That's the old adage you've probably heard, probably back in high school, show, don't tell. So here's my story. 5 years ago, I was 54, and I looked like I had the perfect life. I'd been married for 28 years to a kind and loving man. I had 2 sons in the Ivy League, a beautiful home with a 180-degree view of the Atlantic Ocean. And yet I was restless, unsettled. Something was off, but I couldn't name it. I regularly berated myself. Why can't you be happy with all you have? I thought my discontent was tied to my struggle to find my lane professionally. I was actually working on a memoir about that very struggle. But one day, my fingers traveled to a different story. A story about an intense and confusing 18-year friendship I had with a female friend. Oh my God, I thought that day as I looked at the words I had just typed on the page. I didn't just love this friend, I had been in love with her. And I knew at my deepest core that I still was. Those words on the page began my march to the edge of the cliff where I had to decide if I would jump into the unknown or stay in the safe, comfortable life I knew. Ever since that day 5 years ago, I've been living the rest of the story and writing it as well. I've become an expert at midlife leaping, and now I coach others who want to share their midlife leaping stories too. Over the coming weeks, I'll be talking more about the twists and turns of writing my memoir, and also the other nonfiction project I'm working on,
which is a book about grief after a big leap. I'll also be sharing stories about other authors' book writing journeys. So, an astonishing number of Americans say they want to write a book someday. The most often quoted statistic comes from writer Joseph Epstein, who said that 81% of Americans feel that they have a book in them and they should write it. Now, how he got that number, I have no idea. I've even seen 90% thrown around. But regardless of the precision, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people say they like to write a book someday. Maybe you're one of those people. So let's stay with this for a bit, and let's talk about why this number is so high. Well, I think there's something romantic about saying you're an author. It's exotic. It's kind of prestigious. People look at you differently. All of a sudden, you've risen in the ranks. You have authority. So there's that desire to raise your profile in the world. Perhaps your goal is to become a thought leader. Perhaps your goal is to help grow your business and maybe make some more money. We'll be talking more about money and the financial implications of becoming an author in the coming weeks. But let's, for now, put money aside. The two most common reasons I hear people give for wanting to write a book are, first, everyone is telling them that they should write a book. And second, they have a story or a message they're burning to share with the world. So let's start with that first reason. Everyone tells me I should write a book. Has anyone ever told you that? Have you ever said that to anyone? I have to admit I am guilty of that all the time. I can't help it. I see in books. Now, I think this happens most often when the person you know has a story or an experience that inspires you. Like the mother who's lost a child and still maintains a positive attitude. Or the young teacher with a terminal cancer diagnosis who still manages to make the most of every day. You think, how does she do that? I want to know her secret. So just take a minute right now and think about whether you've ever told someone they should write a book. What inspired you to say that? And I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Now, take another minute to think about whether anyone has ever said that to you, that you should write a book. What prompted them to say that? What story did they want you to write about? And if someone has ever said that to you, how did that make you feel? I invite you again to jot down your thoughts and share them in the comments. So it's a great thing that people might say you should write a book. But here's the catch. If it's just other people saying you should write a book and you don't feel an independent desire to do so, you're probably not going to write that book. Because, and I do hate to say it, but writing a book is hard. It's complex. It's a project that you have to learn how to manage. And you have to really, really want to do it. So back to that second most common reason that people give for wanting to write a book. That they have a story or a message they're burning to share with the world. What does that look like? Well, it's something that doesn't go away. It nags at you. It tugs at you. You tell yourself you're crazy. Who are you to write a book? You don't have time. You're too busy. But this voice inside you won't leave you alone. It won't go away. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about your book. Your house, your car, your office is filled with scraps of paper where you've written down, scribbles of your ideas, your thoughts, your book titles, your outline. So I'm just wondering, does this sound like you? If yes, what's the book idea that won't leave you alone? Come on, be brave. I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and share it in the comments. In a few weeks, we'll be doing a deeper dive into why it's so important for aspiring authors to know their why they're writing their book. But for now, let's just say you have to really want to do it. Because without that burning desire, it is just too easy to let everything else get in the way. I mean, everything. Writers are known for their amazingly well-organized sock drawers and their alphabetized spice cabinets. So let's just go back for another moment to that 80 or 90% of people who say they want to write a book. Now, of course, most of them never will, for lots of reasons. They like the idea of writing a book, but they're not prepared to do the work. They have an idea, but they don't know how to begin. Or they have so many ideas and they don't know which one to start with. At most, 3% will follow through. Still, that's a lot of books that do get written every year. I want you to be part of that 3%. So if you're curious about what it takes to be part of that 3%, I hope you'll stay on this journey with me in this mini show. I'll help you see the steps along the way, help you ask the right questions about whether writing a book is worth the effort for you, and whether this is the right time for you to embark on that project. I mentioned in the opening that I'm a book coach, which is a term that you may not be familiar with. A book coach is like a personal trainer for your writing life. I'm with writers every step of the way while they work on their books, providing accountability, emotional support, as well as feedback on the page. I like to think of myself as a Sherpa, a guide on your book writing journey. So in my book coaching practice, I am committed to working with writers who want to write books that change people's lives. Are you a writer who wants to make an impact on the world? So this is what I'd love you to take away from today. If you take away nothing else, writing a book is a big undertaking. But if you have a message or story you're burning to share with the world, it's worth embarking on the journey. You can change other people's lives and your own life by sharing your story. So a little preview of next week, we're going to look at the book buying habits of the American public and dig into what people are reading and what they aren't reading. And I look forward to seeing you then, and I invite you to share the mini show link with your friends. And again, I want to remind you, if you have any questions, please, or particular topics you'd like me to cover, and I want to do that. This is for you. So just email me your thoughts at hello@yourstoryfinder.com. And in the meantime, happy reading and writing.
So You Want to Write a Book is part of the Candy Factory mini-series and is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. You can find the show streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And you can subscribe to the audio version anywhere you get your podcasts.
Over the past 8 years, Suzette has been on a mission to help writers clear the fog and cut through the overwhelm so they can move their ideas out of their head and onto the page.
Her later in life coming out journey and her professional experience as an author, accelerator, certified book coach, and Dare to Lead trained professional, as well as her time at Harvard Law School, Wellesley College, and Columbia Theological Seminary, have given her a unique perspective, as well as many of her own stories to tell.
When she's not writing or coaching other writers, Suzette can be found on her yoga mat,
advocating for the Lancaster LGBTQ+ coalition,
or hanging out with her partner, Wendy, and their rescue pup, Lucy.
Visit yourstoryfinder.com to learn more about Suzette and her life story, as well as her writing coach offerings.
Life's too short to stay stuck, so why not write that book?
So You Want to Write a Book is produced by the Candy Factory Collective at the Candy Factory Co-working Campus in Lancaster, PA.
Production support by Anna Tran. Administrative support by Ann Kirby, Ariana Henderson, Krisha Marcel, Jason Mundock, and Robert Diggs. Notes and links can be found on the show post at our website, candyfactorycollective.com.
Candy Factory.
Collective.